Nectar of Devotion by Śrīla Rupa Goswami, translated by Śrīla Prabhupāda. Chapter 17, Ecstatic Love. By the process of executing regulated devotional service, one is actually elevated onto the transcendental stage beyond the material modes of nature. At that time, one's heart becomes illuminated like the sun. The sun is far above the planetary systems, and there is no possibility of its being covered by any kind of cloud. Similarly, when a devotee is purified like the sun, from his pure heart there is a diffusion of ecstatic love, which is more glorious than the sunshine. Only at that time is the attachment to Krishna perfect. Spontaneously, the devotee becomes eager to serve the Lord in his ecstatic love. At this stage, the devotee is not on the platform of Uttama Adhikari, perfect devotion. At this stage, the devotee is on the platform of Uttama Adhikari, perfect devotion. Such a devotee has no agitation from material affections and is interested only in the service of Radha and Krishna. So this is getting into the really nice part, where he's talking about, up until now he's been talking about regulated devotional service and spontaneous devotional service, which are both parts of sadhana bhakti. Sadhana bhakti means devotional service in practice. Practice means that we're not yet at the perfect stage. In the beginning stage, which is the offensive stage or the neophyte stage, one has to execute devotional service according to the rules and regulations, because he doesn't really understand what is devotional service or how to perform it. Then when one becomes purified from the gross and subtle material attachments, he enters into the middle stage, madhyamadhikari, where he can actually perform the process of devotional service without making offenses. Then, after some time of performing this practice of spontaneous devotional service, he actually reaches the perfection, which is pure love, prema. Okay, so now we're going to discuss that stage. Remember, both regulated and spontaneous devotional service are still both in the stage of sadhana. Of course, spontaneous is a more advanced stage of sadhana, but still it's sadhana. And only when one reaches this perfect purity, then that's the real thing. To clarify, in the previous chapters, the symptoms of devotional service were explained, along with instructions as to how we may execute devotional service with our present senses, and gradually rise to the platform of ecstasy and spontaneous love. And the two kinds of devotional service, namely devotional service through regulative principles and through spontaneous love, were discussed. Within the stage of the regulative principles of devotional service, there are two divisions, namely executive and effective. This effective portion of devotional service is called bhava, or ecstasy. In this connection, let's break that down. Executive, what does executive mean? Execute. You would just do it. Just execute. Just follow the instructions. That's what an executive means. An executive, like in a business, for example, is usually not the owner of the business, but he's a manager appointed by the owner to carry out certain functions. So the business owner says, you do this. Make our profit next quarter. And the executive, yes sir, he goes off and does it. He executes the plan, which is created by the owner. Okay? So in the beginning of devotional service, we don't have much idea what's going on. It's like we just have to execute the instructions. Just do it. Why? Because it says here, that's what you're supposed to do. If we get into a big, long explanation, then it gets in the way of actually doing. So in the beginning, it's best to just do it. Okay? But then you reach a stage called the effective stage. And I think that actually should be affective. Affective. There's a difference between the English word effect and affect. Affect, or affective, is a psychological term that refers to the emotional experience that you get from some process, or it's called affect, emotional affect. Some event or something that you experience creates a certain emotional impression on you, and that technically is termed the affect. So I think this is one of our good old editorial goofs here. Prabhupada knows what he's talking about. And he used the word affective, and they substituted the word effective. Because there's no definition of effective. The word effective actually fits the context here. So the affective portion of devotional service is called bhava, or ecstasy. And we went over many, many different kinds of bhava in our Sunday satsang series some time back. In this connection, there is a statement in the Tantras that ecstasy is the first symptom of pure love for the personality of Godhead, and in that stage, one is sometimes found shedding tears or shivering. Not always are these symptoms manifest, but occasionally. Okay, so Prabhupada doesn't quote the specific Tantra. But I remember I got into a big argument with a devotee in LA one time because I said, there's a lot of material in Nectar of Devotion that's drawn from the Tantras. And I guess he thought I was talking about, so-called tantric yoga or tantric sex or something like this. We got into a big argument about it. But here's the quote, right here in chapter 17. There's a statement in the Tantras. Well, it turns out that many of the divisions of Vedic literature, such as the Puranas, the Upanishads, the Itihasas, and so on, are divided into three. For people in the mode of goodness, people in the mode of passion, and people in the mode of ignorance. For example, there are 18 Puranas written by Vyasadeva. And of these 18, 6 are for people in the mode of ignorance, 6 are for those in the mode of passion, and 6 are for those in the mode of goodness. So naturally, the Bhagavad Purana, or Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, is for people in the mode of goodness. And we don't much hear about or bother with the others. So there are tantras in the mode of ignorance, in the mode of passion, and in the mode of goodness. The tantras in the mode of goodness deal with the process of devotional service. Those in the mode of passion deal with demigod worship, and like that. And the tantras in the mode of ignorance deal with like black arts and sexual stuff and that kind of stuff. Mode of ignorance. But this quote is from one of the tantras in the mode of goodness. Just because, you see, when the British are always trying to discredit the Vedic culture. So when they translated the tantras, the first ones that they translated were the weird, Buddhist tantras having to do with different sexual rituals and stuff like this. They didn't translate the tantras in the mode of goodness. They only translated the ones in the mode of ignorance. So everybody got this impression that tantra equals sex, but it's not true at all. Actually, there are thousands of tantras, and they deal with all kinds of things. Everything from the highest devotional service to how to do many practical things like agriculture and building, and how to do temple worship, how to select a guru, how to manage a family, how to manage economy, and so many things. Tantras are very extensive. But the theme of the tantras that ties them all together is how to live a spiritual life in the material world. So here we're getting a quote from the Tantra that the affective portion of devotional service is called bhava, or ecstasy. In this connection, there's a statement in the Tantras that ecstasy is the first symptom of pure love for the personality of Godhead, and in that stage one is sometimes found shedding tears or shivering. Not always are these symptoms manifest, but occasionally. When King Ambarish was put into difficulty by Durvasa, he began to think of the lotus feet of the Lord, and thus there were some changes in his body, and tears were falling from his eyes. These symptoms are activities of ecstasy. They are visible in the shivering of the body and the shedding of tears. After the outward appearance of these ecstatic symptoms, they stay within the mind, and continuation of the ecstasy is called samadhi. This stage of appreciation becomes the cause of future exchanges of loving affairs with Krishna. You understand?